When you hear the word assessment, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably a final exam, right? A letter grade, maybe a bunch of red ink. It's that moment of judgment at the very end. But what if assessment was actually way more than that? What if it was the engine of learning itself and not just the finish line? Okay, let's really get into this.
I absolutely love this quote from Robert Stake. It nails a really big idea so simply. Think about it. The cook tastes the soup while they're making it, right? To adjust things, to improve it, to see what it needs. That's learning in action. The guests, on the other hand, they taste the final product. They're there to judge it. Both are important for sure, but they happen at totally different times and for completely different reasons. This is the perfect way to frame our whole conversation.
All right, so keeping that soup analogy simmering in the back of our minds, let's break down the three distinct but super connected ways to think about assessment. We're talking about assessment of, for, and as learning. And seriously, understanding the difference here is the key to shifting from just grading students to actually helping them grow.
First up, we've got the one we all know, the classic, assessment of learning. This is the summative stuff. This is the guests tasting the soup. It's your final exam, that big term paper, the grade on the report card. Its main job is to certify what's been learned and then report on it. It's like a snapshot in time, a measurement that's taken after all the learning is supposedly done.
Okay, next is assessment for learning. Now we're back in the kitchen with the cook. This is formative assessment. This is when a teacher uses a quick quiz or asks a few questions or just watches students work, not for a grade, but to gather intel. It's evidence that tells the teacher, looks like half the class is stuck on this concept. I need to try explaining it a different way. Or, okay, this particular student needs a little nudge right here to get past this block. It's all about using assessment to figure out the very next step. And that brings us to what I think is the most powerful one, assessment, A as learning. This is where the cook doesn't just taste the soup, but actually teaches the apprentice how to taste it for themselves. The student becomes their own assessor. They're the ones starting to ask, wait, do I really get this? Where am I confused? What's another way I could try to figure this out? This is all about building metacognition, the skill of thinking about your own thinking. It's about giving students the power to drive their own learning. So if we've got these three really powerful approaches, why does it so often feel like assessment is only about that final grade? Well, it's because for a long, long time, our education system was built on a model that was pretty lopsided. So check this out. This is what the researcher Lorna Earle calls the traditional assessment pyramid. And just look at it. That massive base at the bottom is assessment of learning, the summative, grading part. Everything else is kind of just squished on top. The main focus here is on ranking and sorting and reporting, which, you can imagine, often pushes the actual process of learning into the background. But here's the good news. There's been a huge shift in educational thinking. People are now focused on basically flipping that pyramid upside down to build a system that really puts the learner first. And this visual just says it all. On the left, you've got the old, heavy-bottomed pyramid. But look at the one on the right. In this reconfigured model, assessment as learning, getting the student to be their own assessor, is the foundation. It's the biggest part. Assessment for learning is that solid middle layer, and the summative assessment of learning is still there, it's still important, but it's a smaller peak. The whole emphasis shifts to building students up and using assessment to fuel their learning, not just to measure it.
Let's just break this down a little more clearly. Take a look at that top row for assessment of learning, the purpose, to certify and rank. The assessor, the teacher. The emphasis, scoring and competition. Now jump down to the bottom. To assessment as learning, the purpose completely changes to developing self-monitoring. And who's the key assessor? The learner. The emphasis becomes reflection and self-evaluation. It's a massive shift in both purpose and really in power.
Now this is so important to remember. Even though we're using this pyramid image, it's not a strict hierarchy. It's not about getting rid of one to make room for another. The goal isn't to just eliminate summative tests. The real goal is to create a synergy, a dynamic, healthy interplay between all three types, where everything we do, whether it's a final exam or a quick peer review session, is designed to serve the person at the very center of it all, the learner. Okay, so the theory sounds great, right? But what does this actually look like in a classroom day to day? How do we take these big ideas and make them a part of our regular practice? Let's get into some real-world strategies. A perfect example, and one of my favorites, is the I try, we try, you try model. It's so simple, but so profound. First, the teacher shows exactly how to do something. They model their thinking process out loud. That's I try. Then they do it together with the class or in small groups. That's the we try. This is where support and guidance happen. And finally, the student tries it on their own. You try. This gradual release of responsibility is the perfect way to build those self-monitoring skills that are at the heart of assessment as learning.
And there are so many other ways to do this. You can have peer feedback sessions where students learn how to give and receive helpful advice. You can use reflective journals for students to track their own progress and aha moments. And this one is huge, giving feedback that is descriptive and focused on the task, not on the person. And then, and this is the magic part, giving them a chance to actually use that feedback and revise their work. It's all about creating a culture of growth, not a culture of gotcha.
Because when we get this balance right, we're doing something so much bigger than just prepping kids for the next test. We're actually preparing them for a lifetime of learning.
At the end of the day, the ultimate goal is this: creating autodidacts. I know, it's a fancy word, but it just means a self-directed learner. Someone who knows how to learn on their own, how to ask the right questions, how to figure out what they don't know, and then how to find the resources they need to grow long after they've left any formal schooling. So here's the big takeaway. By shifting the balance of assessment, we empower our students. We help them move from being just passive listeners to being active, engaged drivers of their own education. We give them the tools to become critical, independent thinkers who are ready for pretty much any challenge life throws their way.
And so that leaves us with a question to chew on. Whether you're a teacher, a student, or really just anyone who cares about learning, the question becomes, how can we, in our own spaces, shift this balance? How can we help create environments where assessment is truly a process of learning by the learner and for the learner?